Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're diving into how modern software systems are really built. And here's the thing. It's not just about the code. It's about having a clear story, a deliberate plan that guides every single decision right from the get-go. And that brings us to this really powerful idea right here. I mean, think about it. Complex systems, those begin as stories. Before you even think about writing a single line of code, the absolute best, most complex software starts with a narrative. It's a total mindset shift that can transform how we build, well, everything.
Okay, so this brings us right to our first section, architecture as storytelling. It's all about shifting our perspective, right? We're moving away from just writing code, and instead, we're learning to tell the story of the system we want to build, imagining its entire life cycle before it even exists.
So, what exactly is a blueprint in this context? Well, you can think of it like a sandbox, a totally safe space for experimentation. It's this place where you can design and model your perfect, ideal system. You get to explore all the possibilities, you can even try to break it, find all the weak spots, and you do all of this before any real-world constraints or consequences ever come into play. It's pretty cool.
All right, let's see how this actually works in practice. We're going to look at an imaginary project called Acme IoT. Now, this project was literally created to explore the principles of a perfect, ideal, enterprise-grade system. You can think of it as a kind of architectural North Star. And believe me, the goals for this imaginary project were super ambitious. The Acme IoT blueprint was aiming for 7 core things. It had to be scalable, observable, event-driven, secure, testable, cloud-native, and future-proof. Basically, it was a model for what any robust, modern system should really be striving for. Okay, so out of all those goals, what's the most critical principle in this entire blueprint? It's actually a really simple rule. The API never does the heavy lifting. That's it. The main entry point, where all the requests come in, it has to stay lightweight. Its only job is to say, yep, got your request, and then immediately pass off all the complex, time-consuming work to other parts of the system. So how does that actually work? Well, it's this simple, really elegant 3-step flow. Step 1, a producer publishes an event, something like, hey, a new device just got registered. Step 2, a message bus, like a postal service, picks up that event and carries it along. And finally, Step 3, background workers grab that event and do all the actual processing, completely separate and asynchronous from the main API. Simple, right? And this is where you really see the power of this design. I mean, first, it's incredibly scalable. If you get a huge spike in traffic, you just add more workers. No problem. It's also super resilient. If one of those workers fails or crashes, the event isn't lost. It's sitting safely on the message bus, waiting to be processed again. And maybe best of all, it's modular. You can add brand new services that listen for these events without ever having to touch a single line of your existing code. It's a huge win.
Okay, so that's the blueprint, the theory. But how do these ideas from our imaginary Acme IoT project actually show up in the real world? This is where the story really gets interesting and comes to life.
So when we connect this blueprint to reality, you can see how different real-world projects actually embody these core ideas. You've got things like the AI video portal, which is all about separation of concerns. Then there's VxCare, a perfect example of an event-driven architecture. And AI Prompt Architect, which really focuses on user-centric design. These aren't just buzzwords. They're crucial parts of a good system story. Yeah, let's take the AI video portal, for example. It is a perfect showcase of that modularity we were talking about. It's built from a bunch of independent microservices. These are just small, focused services that each do one specific job. So you've got one for metadata, another for the API, and a completely separate one for streaming video. And what that does is make the whole system incredibly clean and way easier to manage. And then you have the VxCare platform. This thing lives and breathes that event-driven principle from our blueprint. Its entire purpose is to process this constant, absolutely massive stream of real-time data coming from vehicle sensors. This is exactly the kind of high-volume, never-ending workload that this kind of event-driven model is just built for. So, if these are the stories, what are the tools they use to tell them? Let's pop the hood and take a look at the Modern Architect's Toolkit. Okay, so if you look across all these projects, a pretty clear pattern starts to show up. There's a big focus on modern, high-performance languages. We see a lot of Node.js, a good bit of Python, and .NET in there as well. And this just reinforces that idea that there's no single best language, right? It's all about the story your system needs to tell. That's what dictates which tools are right for the job.
And get this, the AI video portal actually uses both Node.js and Python. It's not an either-or thing. They use Node.js for the really fast, simple stuff like basic API operations and high-performance video streaming. But then they switch over to Python for the more complex parts of the API that need advanced features like authentication and search. It's a super pragmatic, best tool for the job approach, and it works. But it's not just about the programming languages, right? There are other common denominators here. Pretty much everything is containerized with Docker, which gives you consistency everywhere. For databases, MongoDB seems to be the go-to for its flexibility with data. Of course, modern, RESTful, and real-time APIs are standard. And on the front end, you're seeing modern UIs built with things like React and Next.js. This is kind of the standard stack, the common ground for telling a modern architectural story. Okay, let's pull all of this together. What does this actually mean for you and for any system that you might be thinking about building? And that brings us right back to this quote. Acme IoT might be imaginary, but the lessons are absolutely real. This whole blueprint project wasn't just some fun, creative exercise. It's a practical, reusable guide for building real-world systems that are actually designed to last. The fiction was created to serve a very, very real purpose. And really, that is the most crucial point here. Good architecture isn't about just picking a hot new technology. It's about telling a clear, compelling story of how a system works. It's all about foresight and planning, creating that narrative that explains why the system even exists and how it's supposed to behave. And once you have that story, it becomes the guide for every single technical decision you make from there on out. So that leaves us with one final question to think about. What story will your next project tell? Because at the end of the day, the best systems aren't just coded or built, they are thoughtfully and deliberately designed, with a clear story guiding them from beginning to end.